If you look at the research, all the research shows that you're doing more damage to your children. In a business, people are very happy to be like, okay, this is not working, where can I get support?
Yeah.
But in a relationship, people will be like, but we love each other, we should be able to figure it out. And she goes, no. We can't have the conversation about money because it will scare him away. So I was like, wait, so you want her to get married and then have the conversation about money? And then if it scares him away, then what? As a species, we didn't necessarily evolve to be monogamous. I am pro-monogamy, but no matter what you say, marriage and monogamy and all is very much a social construct. You know, but let them just get married, it will be fine. And I'm like, that piece drives me crazy.
Welcome to Kasa Connect. Together we're exploring the journeys of entrepreneurs, creatives and change makers shaping the future. Love, sex, money. Nothing is off limits for today's guest. Relationship and divorce coach Natasha answers burning questions like overlooking red flags, are we naturally polygamous, and who should pay on the first date?
I wanted to be a life coach from the age of, I think, 17. I used to say, you know, this is what I want to do. I want to help people. But I don't think I was strong enough to do it because everything that people went through really impacted me. So I'd hear something and then I'd get really upset. Like, so I had the empathy without the resilience.
Yeah.
And so I went off and did business management and stuff. But while I was at uni, I actually enrolled in a second college and would kind of do like a little, before side hustles became a thing, I did a side course, I guess, on counseling, and I loved it. And then it was only a few years after I got married that I decided, no, I wanted to do the life coaching. So I did an online life coaching qualification. But the divorce coaching and the relationship coaching came because after I went through the experience of divorce myself, I was like, you know, and I was one of the first people, at least that I knew, that left a situation like that and left with a child. I had a 15-month-old when I left, which was like, 13 years ago. And I would have people reach out to me and just be like, I'm going through this as well. I'm experiencing this. Like, what should I do? And it's not my place to ever tell someone what they should do or that they should leave or not leave, even as a coach. But I was like, it really bothers me that there's still so much shame and stigma attached to this, especially within the South Asian community more so. And that no matter what the deal is, the woman gets blamed. Like, that really bothered me. It really bothered me to see the narrative that people would put on the woman. And so I was like, I want to be able to help these people, but in a more professional capacity. And so I went back and studied to be a divorce coach. But I'd always say, like, I'm the divorce coach that doesn't want anyone to get divorced, because I don't, right? That goes without saying. And so then I further trained and became a relationship coach so that I could help people both before, during, and after, you know, the relationship.
How do you support people before the relationship?
That's it. That's a great question. Yeah, I think it's looking at our patterns. So if you're dating, first of all, let's talk about dating apps, because, and I'm sure there's a lot.
I would love to actually get your perspective on that, because I'm not really a fan of that. I'm still like a hopeless romantic who wants, you know, to meet cutes in the cafe or library. Or
so I think we watched far too many rom-coms in the 90s that led us to believe that that's how it's going to happen. But you know what I know? So in the same way that I hear stories about people, but I met my partner on Bumble, I've also heard people who say, but I met my partner on a plane. So I'm like, both can happen. Yeah. I think if you're approaching the apps, it's got to be really like not emotional. You know, I mean, if ever I am on apps, it's because I'm bored, to be perfectly honest. I'm like, it's not because I want to be on there. I think people people go onto it like there's so much choice. They're not going onto it with intention. So when I work with women prior to them being in a relationship, it's very much like, okay, if we're going to do this, let's do it with intention. And also let's do it a little bit like methodically. Okay, what time are you going to spend on it? What are some of your questions? Like, are you going to let conversations drag? Are you going to, how quickly do you want to meet the person? You know, and those kind of things. But also looking at people's patterns. Yeah. Because, and you'll see it, you know, I'm sure you'll talk to friends and you'll see a friend who's like in a relationship or met someone on the apps. It's like all amazing, and then it crashes. And you see, and often we can't see our own patterns. And it's only when you talk to someone objectively, they can be like, wait a minute, why are you self-sabotaging here? Why are you blaming being busy at work or blaming doing something because something about that person is like, you're just like, oh my gosh, no, I need to go back and look for someone else. And even this whole like ick thing, which I know is like a very, I don't know, are they Gen Zs, Gen X? I don't know.
Yeah, Gen Zs. I mean, I actually fall into the Gen Z category. But yes, what's your biggest ick is a very common question that we ask each other.
So I have a really controversial opinion on that. I think very often, and maybe not in all cases, but in a lot of people I've spoken to, that an ick is a way of them to kind of self-sabotage. Yeah.
Tell me more about that. Like, how is it self-sabotaging?
Yeah. So there's a lot of people, and again, it comes down to recognizing your patterns, being self-aware, thinking about those moments where you're like, is that thing really bothering you? Because are you perfect? We're not perfect, right? And don't get me wrong, I have also had the ick. But when I sat and reflected on it, I was like, oh, it wasn't so bad. I mean, it's just that I knew that I didn't want to see him again. Yeah. And it happened on the second date. And so I was like, oh yeah, okay, I didn't like that. I didn't like that. I got the ick. And it's in almost like an easy way out. It's easy for us to say, oh yeah, that gave me the ick, and then to leave. But we're human, and humans aren't perfect. And we're all going to have things we don't like about the other person. And so why are we putting a label on it all of a sudden? It can be like, oh, that was a bit weird, didn't like that. But, it's okay because he's got all these other qualities. But if you don't like him anyway, then you can use that as something that you can say, I didn't like. And everyone's like, oh, of course, you got the ick.
We're actually too judgmental, right? And I actually think it's right what you said about the apps, because I had a friend who told me that off the basis of someone's profile, Hinge profile, she rejected him. He had like some qualities that she didn't like that she found on his profile. Then she bumped into him in person.
Totally different.
Yeah. Really liked him, but too late. He was in a relationship. So she learns, to stop being so judgmental.
Yeah. Because, and look, the apps, you are basing it on pictures. It's nice that some of the apps have a bit more information where you can say, oh, I like that they do this. But also, if we're being really honest, and I don't know what it's like because you're still in your 20s, but at least in my 30s, most of them was like, everybody loves hiking. There's certain things that everybody just takes. I'm like, everybody loves traveling. I mean, I'm sorry.
Everyone
who
doesn't
love
travel.
Who doesn't love traveling? Like, we need to, if we're going to be on apps and putting things that we like, we need to go a little bit deeper about what it is that we do like, because everybody likes to travel.
And because I'm very keen to meet organically, do you think that with meeting organically, you just focus on yourself, focus on your career, you do you, and you'll attract the right person? Or do you think that there's more that you have to do and there's more effort than that you have to put when you're trying to find the right person?
So I totally believe in like the universe and all of that kind of stuff and manifesting, because I've seen it work in my own life. And I think that it's really important for us to like almost like be the person, be the person that we want to be. But also, if you want to do it organically, then let your energy be of that. Like I live my life by saying I live by saying that the universe is and my body is eavesdropping on everything that I say. And so I'm really mindful of how I speak. And I think that becoming more mindful of how you speak helps you to figure out where your energy is at. Because if you talk to people and they're like, oh my God, it's so hard. There's no good guys out there. I'm like, well, if that's what you're putting out there and the universe is eavesdropping on like everything that you say, then that's what you're putting out there. So it's like, what do you want from it? And if you want to be on the apps, like be intentional on the apps. If you want to meet someone organically, then don't be afraid to talk to a friend and be like, I would really like to meet someone, or put it out there. Because the other thing is, and look, it's different again, based on the age of the person that I'm speaking to, but people will be like, oh yeah, do you want to meet someone? What kind of person then you want to meet? And you're like, oh no, just a nice guy. Yeah. I'm like, no, you don't want to be just a nice guy. Like, what does that even mean? When you're talking to someone, be like, yeah, I want to meet I would love to meet someone who's like this, and put out there what you want. Because I find that if you're open about it, then say, I don't know, you've spoken to a friend about it and then she happens to go to a wedding of someone that you don't know and she meets someone and she's already in a relationship and she will be like, oh my God, you're perfect for my friend Krishana, I'm going to introduce you. But it's because you have said, you've put it out there and you've been open about it. Like, when did it get so almost like, when did we get so, I don't want to say the word shame, but when did we get so like shy about saying what we want?
Yeah, no, I completely agree, because I was actually just reflecting about that. Because in business, when I need a certain employee or I need a certain collaboration, automatically, I'll say, XYZ, I need this, can you help me? And so it's similar in a relationship, right? You have to put certain level of kind of work out there.
It should be.
Yeah.
Right? It should be. But it's the same thing where in a business, people are very happy to be like, okay, this is not working. Where can I get support?
Yeah.
But in a relationship, people will be like, but we love each other. We should be able to figure it out. And I'm like, wait, so when you want to lose weight, you'll pay for a personal trainer or you'll pay for a nutritionist or whatever it is, or you'll go see your doctor. But when it comes to your relationship, you're like, no, I don't need a relationship coach. We love each other. We'll just talk it out. I'm like, it's the objective support is really helpful. And so it's like kind of bringing help and support back into relationships. And that's okay. You know, like there's nothing to be ashamed of. In fact, I say to people, like, your relationship's not bad because you have a relationship coach. It means that you want it to be even better. In the same way, like you're not saying, oh, my body is bad or whatever. You're just saying, oh, you know, I want to train for high rocks, or I want to train for, you know, Tough Mudder or something like that. So I'm going to get someone to get me there. It doesn't mean you can't work out on your own. It doesn't mean you can't do it. So I think it's just being open about the fact that relationships need a lot more support, because they're not the relationships of like 20 years ago, you know, and you have the support now. So ask for it.
Do you think that there's more kind of damage in relationships today compared to 20 years ago in terms of people kind of giving up much more quickly on relationships?
No. I think there's a lot of relationships from 20 years ago that are really toxic. I think that now people are a lot more open about what's right and what's wrong. People are a lot more open to coaching, to therapy, to getting the support. Probably not where it needs to be, but they're still a lot more open to it. Recently, I've had quite a few clients who've been married one was married for 26 years, one was married for 34 years. So you're not talking about people who are in their 50s and maybe 60s. And it was toxic. And what worries me about that is not so much that, I mean, now they're looking to leave and set up themselves, but their kids saw that. In some cases, it's the kids who gets to 21 and then says to their parents, or says to their mum, you need to leave. And no child should be put in that position. And, you know, there's still so many people who say, we should stay together for the sake of our children. And I'm like, if you actually do look at the research, because now there is a lot of research that's been done, especially in the States. If you look at the research, all the research shows that you're doing more damage to your children than staying together. Because children can pick up on energy. You might say, but we don't argue in front of them. But they can pick up on the fact that there's anger and animosity in the home, and that's not doing them any favors, because those are the cycles they're taking then into their relationships. And so, you know, and I say this knowing that it's not always easy to leave, but I just think that no, we're in a much better place now. Yes, maybe there are some people who give up too easily, but compared to say 20 years ago where they stayed through everything, you're talking about physical abuse, emotional abuse, financial abuse. I don't think that's a good thing.
There's definitely been progress.
Yeah.
Thanks to people like you talking about it and helping the progress. Yeah. And what are some of the common patterns you've seen that have led to relationship breakdowns eventually, or things that people are not talking about when being with a partner that's leading to a lot of issues down the line?
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of where people are at, communication is the biggest thing, but it's not communication. I always say it's not communication, it's comprehension. Because we can talk, or you can talk to anyone, but
really understanding.
Yeah, understanding. And also, if you're speaking English and I'm speaking Spanish, I'm communicating with you, right? But you're not understanding anything that I'm saying. And so I think comprehension is really key. I think we need to change the tagline. Communication is not key, comprehension is key. And it's what people aren't talking about. So now I work with a lot of people before they get married. And the four kind of biggest things that come up. So number one is money. People need to talk about money. It needs to be a thing. The world is changing. A lot of people, inherit a lot more from their families. A lot of women are out earning men now. It needs to be a conversation because resentment builds up, and that's one of the biggest ways of like killing a relationship. Sex. People are not talking about it. They're just assuming that, and it's fine and dandy when you're young and in your 20s and it's all working, and then you have children. Yeah. And then, you go through different stages of life and all of a sudden you're like, it's not working. And I think the fourth thing that people should figure out before they get married is how do we argue and make up. And some of that comes down to attachment styles, but also it just comes down to, you know, again, how you choose to communicate. And a lot of that is based on how you saw your parents communicate, you know.
And how do you recommend one to bring up those conversations if it is uncomfortable?
Yeah, get a coach.
Yes.
If it's uncomfortable, and I totally get it. I'm not, you know.
Because I was going to ask, do you
here.
think it's the wrong person if you don't feel comfortable to talk about them? Like, say I meet someone today and I know, like, I'm earning more than them and I want to continue leading the lifestyle I'm leading, you know?
Yeah.
And I want him to either match it or I'm happy to kind of, you know, help that.
Yeah.
But I'm not being able to speak about it.
Yeah.
Is it because I'm maybe with the wrong person that we did, you know, there's not that closeness and trust?
Yeah.
Do you think?
I don't think so.
No.
I think, and if you look at, like, say your own, I don't want to say limiting, but your own beliefs, right? It could be that you grew up, or whoever it is grew up believing that a man should earn more or a man should have, like, more power, whatever. It's not about it being the wrong person. It's your own beliefs that led you to be that. He might not believe it. Maybe he grew up in a household where his mum out-earned his dad. I don't think just because you can't have a conversation that it doesn't mean that person's not for you. It just means that you can't have the conversation because it's something about you that
have
feels
limiting beliefs
and feels uncomfortable. So it's something about you that feels uncomfortable that you feel like you can't bring it up with them.
Yeah.
And that's just where an objective person can help, whether it's a coach or whether it's, like, I don't know. I don't want to say parents because there's so much emotion attached to it. But, you know, someone who can be objective and who can sit down and say, okay, let's talk about what it is that you feel about money, what it is that they feel about money. How can we come together? Just as an example, it could be anything. It could be money. It could be sex. It could be, you know, children and families. Because the other big thing is women don't want as many children as they used to. And some women don't want children at all. And is that a conversation that you're having, you know, before you decide to commit? You know, these things are big conversations. But the other thing is, I think sometimes that people are like, so I'll give you an example. I spoke to someone recently, and it was an older lady, like my mom's generation. And she was telling me about another couple. And because she knew what I did, she kind of brought up the subject of money. And I said, oh, you know, maybe they should have this conversation. I think it's a really important conversation for them to have prior to them getting married. And she goes, no. We can't have the conversation about money because it will scare him away. So I was like, wait, so you want her to get married and then have the conversation about money? And then if it scares him away, then what? Like, what do we do?
Yeah.
And she was just like, no, but let them just get married. It will be fine. And I'm like, that piece drives me crazy because I'm like,
I see this happening a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, so then you'll make peace with the fact that it didn't work. But why can't we have the conversation before? And then if it's not going to work, at least it's not going to work.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's so much to that. And then, again, culturally, because not only, I mean, obviously I'm South Asian, but I've also lived, you know, in so many different parts of the world. And so cultural nuance is really, like, my kind of USP in my coaching. And, you know, I get it. Like, the other part of kind of the coaching thing is compassion. So even when I get people to talk about their parents, it's like, let's look at how they felt about certain things, or what they said, or what was spoken, or what you overheard, or what you kind of ingested in your own home from them and from society. A lot of people, and I don't blame them at all, are like, oh no, but no, my parents were really good parents. And I'm like, of course they were. No, wait, we're not doing this with any blame. We're doing this with compassion because they raised you in the best way that they could, given their version of the world. We're not here to vilify your parents. We're just here to look at what beliefs you grew up with that don't serve you anymore. That's it.
What's been the most difficult challenge in your journey?
I think for me, it wasn't so much sort of getting divorced, because to be perfectly honest, I think it was at that stage it was a bit of a relief. It wasn't so much that. I think it was being blindsided when it came to raising my child on my own. So I always thought it's okay if things don't work, like, as in, okay, things haven't worked, that's okay, like you can still co-parent. But in my situation, my child's father decided to have nothing, you know, to do with our lives. And I think that being like, oh my God, okay, wait, so I'm not single parenting where he goes on holiday, you know, to his father or whatever. I'm solo parenting, and that caught me by surprise. I did not expect that. I did not see it coming. And so I think that has probably been the biggest challenge, you know, because with that comes like managing your child's emotions and everything else. And so, yeah, that's probably been the biggest challenge. You know, it's like I said, it's been 12 years because he's 13 now. Yeah. So it's been 12 years on, and I've made my peace and all the forgiveness and all of that kind of stuff. But that's not to say that the first 10 years wasn't extremely difficult.
Well, thank you for being so open and honest.
Yeah.
I love the way you do that because it really genuinely inspires not just me, but I'm sure so many people listening. It's not easy to be vulnerable.
It's not easy to be vulnerable. And again, I can be vulnerable 12 years on. Maybe if we'd had this conversation 12 years ago, I wouldn't have been as vulnerable. I've done enough of my own work to get there. But the reason that I talk about it is because one of the biggest things I realized is that there are so many people experiencing it who think that they are alone. And, you know, I definitely had like some people who said to me in the earlier years of like 4 or 5 years ago when I started talking about divorce, who were like, could you do it without using the D word? You know, do you have to use it? And my response was always, until you think that it's a bad word, I will not stop talking about it. And again, as I said right at the beginning, it goes without saying, like, I'm not pro-divorce, but I just see far too many women in really difficult situations who feel like they're the only people experiencing this and the only person. And so when I have someone who comes up to me or DMs me on Instagram and says to me, like, oh no, I recently got divorced and I know that I'm going to be happy because I see you happy. Yeah. I'm like, I just need the one person. Like, that's it. Like, I don't, you know, I'm not here to like, I'm not some influencer. Like, I'm not here to, you know, change thousands of lives. I just need that one woman to know that she's not alone and that she can be happy, that it's possible to be divorced and happy. Like, so sometimes when people, I always say people meet you where you're at. So if people are like, oh, you know, oh, you're divorced, and their body language, everything, instant, oh, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm good. Like, I'm happily divorced. And their body language changes. And they're like, oh, okay. And suddenly they change and they meet you where you're at. As opposed to like, I don't want a pity party. Like, I'm not here for that, you know? So.
No, I love that. And how are you going about the dating? I mean, at the end of the day, everyone wants love. Everyone wants connection. Everyone wants a partner. You know, what advice can you give from your experiences of trying to find the perfect person?
Yeah, I don't know if the perfect person exists.
Perfect person for you.
Yeah, perfect person for me. I decided that I was coming off all apps because it was like sucking the life out of me and I was done. And I just got really vocal about being like, yeah, I'm open to meeting someone. And the other really interesting thing, and again, this is different based on where you're at in life, is that although I remember when I left, it was just before my 30th birthday, so I was quite young. And some auntie said to me like, oh, you know, don't let this put you off, Natasha. And I was like, are you kidding? Like, I love love. Like, I'm all about the love. Don't worry. Except I wasn't. It took me almost a decade to realize that I didn't want anyone coming near me. Like, I was busy raising my kid. I was living my life. I was working, living in London. Like, I was enjoying myself. And I didn't want anyone. And it's only now that I'm like, oh, no, okay, I'm open to it. And so last year, I committed to... I say committed, I've been on them when I'm bored twice since then, but committed to coming off most of the apps and just being vocal about the fact that, yeah, you know what, I am now open to meeting someone. And so if there's someone you think of, and again, because I believe in the universe, last year I remember saying, I'm done with the apps. I'm going to, and I was living in Lagos, now I live in Dubai. But I remember saying, I'm putting it out there. There's going to be someone who meets someone and who thinks, oh my God, that's a great match for Natasha. And just introduce me. And it happened. It happened in a place that I didn't expect it to happen. And it didn't become anything, which is fine. But it just showed me that actually when we are really clear about what we want and we're unafraid to ask for what we want, because a lot of women are afraid to ask for what they want, then we can get that. But it's like, be unapologetic about what you want and be clear about what you want.
That's so true. That's literally flat facts. And that's something me and Shivana just yesterday was discussing, you know, like, this is the time to be unapologetically yourself and be kind of real and true to what you want. And you have one life, you know, like, you can't live in fear of judgment, what people would say. And I think a lot of people do that, which is what stops them from truly getting what they want. We also spoke a bit about this before, but I wanted to bring it up, a prenup. Because, okay, I'll be honest with you, and I've said this really openly, that I don't want to get a prenup because I want to marry someone who I can fully trust. And I don't want to get into a marriage where I feel like I need a prenup because anything's going to happen. I'm a very positive, enthusiastic person. And my point of view has been challenged a lot. And I want to hear your perspective.
Okay. So I have a question for you, because I'm not going to tell you. That's my question. I'm going to ask you to analyze it. If you were moving into a neighborhood where your real estate agent said to you, Krishana, it's the most beautiful neighborhood. You absolutely love it. Eventually, when you have children, they can play in this little playground and this park. But I just need to tell you one thing. All the apartments in this neighborhood, 50% of them over a 10-year period catch on fire. And that one that you're looking at is absolutely beautiful. It's your dream home. It's got like floor-to-ceiling windows, but it's got no fire escape. Would you move in there?
No.
There's a 50% chance of divorce today.
Yeah.
And so the reason I say, if you don't want to get the prenup, talk about the prenup. It's not, there's nothing to it except protecting you.
Yeah.
Like, it's how we see it. It just comes down to your mind. It's a bit like saying...
It's insurance.
It's insurance. I was about to say, if you're going on holiday to the US where you know that they don't have the NHS, like, big up the NHS, and you know that God forbid something was to happen and you could be slapped with like a $50,000 bill, would you take insurance out? Yeah, it's the same thing. It's how we view it. So it doesn't take away from the amazing, beautiful like relationship you have with this person. It just means that should something happen that you really hope doesn't happen, are you covered? That's all.
I literally live in a fairy tale in my head, so I'm really glad that we're having these conversations. Yeah. It's really food for thought for me.
Don't worry, so do I. Like, Love Actually is my all-time favorite movie. Let me just put that out there. The most, craziest love movie there is, because so much of it is unrealistic. So I get it. I get it. That's what we grew up on. But all I'm saying is, like, it doesn't take away from the relationship. Yeah. It just means that, you're insured. You're looking out for the things that you can't foresee coming.
Yeah. And what are your views on monogamy? Interested.
I know. Might get in trouble for this. Okay, so I am pro-monogamy. Let me just start with that. But as a species, we didn't necessarily evolve to be monogamous. Yeah. And so while I'm pro-monogamy, and look, not in the way that people are doing it, not in the way that they're going out like, I'm having an affair, or like, monogamy is not a thing. My species needs to spread its seed. Like, I'm not saying that to any
Musk.
Men. No, most definitely not. I am pro-monogamy. But no matter what you say, marriage and monogamy and all is very much a social construct, and I think that it's different now. People are getting married later. They've had other partners. They've maybe lived together. So it is a little bit different compared to, again, 20 years ago when there wasn't that opportunity. But I also think that, and again, this comes down to one of those 4 things I talked about, where you talk about, and sex is one of them, pre-marriage. Because I recently had a couple of clients who've said to me that they've had partners who've said to them, I really want to like explore sex parties, which apparently is a huge thing in London. I didn't know that until I started doing some research.
I've never been to one, but I've heard it's all out there.
I haven't been to one, but then when I looked it up, because I was like, oh, is this a thing? And actually, I think I saw it a couple of years ago in Stylist magazine, because I love Stylist magazine. And that's something that's, everyone reads it or whatever. It's a big one. And so it's not even like this kind of shady underground stuff anymore. It's like a real thing. And that's okay. But again, it comes down to having the conversations about it. So anyway, this client said to me like, oh, my husband wanted to go to these. And for years, I've gone to these things with him. And I was just too afraid to be like, I don't want to go. But it really wasn't my thing. And so I went. And eventually they were getting divorced. And again, like you might say, oh, no, but why should he need to go to this stuff if they can, have a good enough like sex life? But it's a bit like porn, right? Yeah. Like, why do people watch it? And so my question then would be is, what's the difference between watching it on your phone at home and going to a party where you're not maybe partaking it, but you're watching it, right? Like again, like I said, I'm not necessarily pro these things, but I just think the conversations are important.
The reason I brought this one up was I actually read an article recently where it was like this whole thing of monogamy is actually a social construct, like you said, to help, keep society organized. So you can track children, have units of family, everything in society is kind of a construct, and actually people are naturally attracted to not just one person.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting. Yeah.
It's true. And I would be really interested to read that. But yeah, I totally agree. And like, I will say, and here I feel like in the UK, we're still not as, progressive as they are in the States. Like in the States, they're now talking about throuples and polyamory and stuff like that. And personally, maybe I'm a little traditional, but I feel like that's going into a whole other sort of pool of stuff that I don't even think we necessarily understand yet. And it's also because now that everything seems to be okay. It's like whatever it is, it's okay, right? Everything's acceptable. That I sometimes think we dive into this pool without understanding what it actually means because we forget that we're still human. So when people go into like throuples or polyamorous relationships, like we can't control how we feel, and we can't.
I can't imagine the jealousy, like
right,
and the insecurity if I'm not the only one.
No, I'm with you. Exactly. I can't imagine it either, and so I think I'm glad we're not there yet. At least here it's not as big a thing as it is there yet. But I just do think that, rather than jump into these things thinking like, oh yeah, it's a thing, just think about how you're going to feel about that. Because again, there's a lot of people, and again, I'm generalizing, but there's a lot of men who will be like, oh yeah, monogamy shouldn't be a thing. I'm going to do my thing. But tell them that their wife's going to go and do like, Marbella on holiday with her friends and do the same. And how cool he is with that, right? Is he cool with that?
I wanted to know about, some of the red flags that you feel like people kind of overlook when dating, which they should pay more attention to.
Yeah. I think for women, a lot of women wait to be chosen. And so breadcrumbing, and when someone gives you like just enough attention or whatever, if you aren't comfortable with someone's communication style, if you find yourself justifying their communication style, to me, that's a red flag. Like you should know where you stand. Yeah. And that's not to say that where you stand is always going to be where you want to stand, because that's the other thing. Yeah. One of the things that really irks me about TikTok and Instagram and all of these things is that people come on it with a very girl, if he's not messaging you this many times, then, he's not into you. Or if he has the time to do this and go to work and go to the gym and train for this and do that, and he doesn't have the time to message you, he's not that into you. And I'm like,
it's so many of those.
Yeah. And also, let me just say to any one listening to this, is the algorithm gives you more of what you're looking at. And so the algorithm, this Instagram you see is not Instagram as an objective Instagram. It's an Instagram based on what you're watching. So if you watch one of them and you think, that's so true, he hasn't messaged me, whatever, it's going to show you more of that, which is going to give you confirmation bias. And suddenly you're going to be like, yeah, not talking to him. And then he might come back 3 days later and be like, I'm really sorry. I had to take my mom to A&E. And you're like, tough. You could have messaged me from there. I mean, I hear these things. It really irks me because I'm like, you know what? Where is our patience? Where is our compassion? Where is our understanding that someone has a lot more going on than just us? Now, I say this, and I also say that, look, there's caveats to it, right? Of course, if someone's not making you feel safe, that's a red flag. If someone's making you feel really uncomfortable, you're on a date and they're really touchy-feely and you're not necessarily, that's a red flag. You have to recognize those things. But I just think that this whole generation of instant gratification, we need to kind of scale back on it. And this is not a dating thing. I had an argument with my 13-year-old the other day because apparently I left him on red. And I'm like, but what you said to me didn't require an answer. It was a statement. What did you want me to respond to? And I'm like, oh my God, there's the next generation who are going to be like, she didn't respond. And then other things he'll be like, but you didn't respond for 40 minutes. I'm like, yeah, because I was doing something. And so I think we've got to be mindful of the expectations we're putting on other people. Yeah. Are you responding immediately? are you giving that person your all, or are you like hanging out with your girlfriends and then being like, I'll message him later? Yeah. So maybe he's hanging out with his friends and like, I'll message her later. Like, don't put expectations on someone else unless you're willing to have the same expectations. If you're raising the bar for a man, raise it for yourself. Don't raise it for him and then be like, but I'll do what I want.
Yeah.
And then, but I just expect him to, whatever. So a little one for the guys there, because everyone thinks I'm pro women. I am, but like, raise the bar to the same standard as you would for yourself.
So another very interesting debate topic we have amongst friends is, on a first date, should the guy take the bill?
Yes. And I'll tell you why. I mean, going into a deeper conversation. First of all, there is a massive pay gap, right? There's a massive pay gap. Men are paid more than women for the same thing, and so he should take the bill. Secondly, if you've met on an app, he's swiped on you because he likes what he sees, okay? Most women will show up at a date and they've like maybe done their hair and put on a bit of makeup and done their nails and stuff like that. All of that costs money. So you're already coming to the date having spent like £50, right? Yeah. It also just, I think there's a lot to do with like character, So I'm guessing most first dates aren't happening at like, I don't know, Chinatown or, Ivy Asia or something like that. If you go for a drink and someone makes you split the bill, that tells me more about their character than anything else. And I know like some people might come up with the whole like feminist debate and stuff like that and say, oh no, but what about equality? But it's not equality because you're not being paid what he's being paid anyway. It's about equity. Where are you guys starting at?
But should you offer? Do you look really bad if you don't offer? Because like, to be honest, I do want a guy who will pay the bill.
Yeah.
But then I also feel like I should offer.
No, I think that's more. So I think a lot of women just need to actually be okay with sitting back and also just receiving. Because somehow we've been led to believe that as part of the feminist movement that it's equality at all times, and therefore split the bill. Yeah. But I think that personally, I think a man should be able to pick up the tab.
Because we do still want the small things like getting the door opened for us, heavy bags being carried. Yeah. And then at the same time, you can exist as wanting some things and equality in certain ways, right? Yeah. So there's so much debate going around about all these things. It's hard to navigate this new world.
There is, but also I think there's a difference between sort of chivalry and, and being a feminist. There's a guy who studied gender in New York called Richard Reeves. I think he was in New York or maybe Harvard, but anyway, Richard Reeves. And he was on a podcast, and the person interviewing him said to him, how come you and your wife went to couples therapy? And he was like, because one day my wife looked at me and she said, it's not that you're not enough of a feminist, it's that you're not masculine enough. And he was like, what? And it's because in this whole feminist movement, he'd always say to her, where would you like to go for lunch? What would you like to do? How about we do this? How about we do that? Thinking he was being a good feminist because he was asking her opinion and he was caring about what she thought. And she was like, sometimes just make the decision. Yeah. Like, just decide that this is where we're going for lunch. And I think, again, coming back to like because I touched on it before about like the kind of biological, aspects of who we are. Women nurture and men like to feel needed. And so in this whole like feminist movement, and again, I am a feminist and I'm all for like, equality or equity. But at the end of the day, that doesn't take away from the fact that biologically, I want to be taken care of.
Okay, that makes sense because I'm in a position where I still want, the rights to things, but I still want to be led, and I like a guy who's masculine in that sense.
That's okay. Like, we want someone. I mean, if he's the male, we want him to be more masculine than feminine, and we want to be more feminine than masculine. In each of us, we have both feminine and masculine traits, but it's like which one's at the forefront. And actually, I have to say that sometimes I do think that there's a very fine line for women, because there are a lot of women who are like building businesses and doing amazing things. And it's really important to be mindful of the fact that you can be building a business, but still stay in your feminine and build your business from the feminine, as opposed to believing that you have to build your business by being more man-like, by being more masculine.
I've honestly learned that recently, and now I'm like leaning into the feminine power I have, and it's working even better than trying to run a business like a man would.
And I love that you said power, because it is power. Feminine power is a thing. And then you build the business on your terms from your feminine, with a couple of masculine traits where you have to be strong and tough, or you're talking to investors or whatever. But you stay in your feminine in the same way that you'd want your partner to stay in his masculine.
So Kasa Connect is really all about connection. So how can our listeners and audience get in touch with you? And what's something that you'd like from them?
Oh, what do I want from them? Just to communicate more, talk, just know that I want people to know that in the same way you get a personal trainer, if you need it, get someone who can support you in your relationship. Like, it's not that, yes, you love each other and you should be able to sort it out, but we each come with our own blueprints, from our families, and sometimes those blueprints don't align, and that's all right. Like, that's not to say a relationship can't work, but you just need someone to help you like shuffle them together and, help you align them. But I'm on most socials, but Instagram is where I'm, most active. So it's just at Natasha Coaches.
Amazing. And what's also unique about this podcast is that we're filming in a cafe. So what's your go-to drink on a coffee break?
Oh, well, I recently gave up oat milk. Otherwise it was an extra hot oat flat white.
Okay.
Now it's just a flat white.
That's a very Asian thing to like it extra hot. That's something that only...
I think it started because I used to walk with my coffee when I lived in London, and it was so cold, and I'm like, I need it extra hot.
Yeah, no, I say that because it's all the Indians that come in and ask for extra hot.
Even though apparently it's really bad for the coffee or like whatever.
Yeah, it burns the milk a bit.
Yeah, it burns the milk. Nah, it's just a flat one. I like it strong.
And what's the best piece of advice that you regret not taking?
Ooh, best piece of advice that I regret not taking. I don't know.
Or if there's none, then a piece of advice you can leave our listeners with.
Yeah. Because I listen, like, I
You're
take
a good
advice.
listener.
I'm a good listener. I take advice.
Yeah.
A piece of advice that I would leave with anyone is start investing. Just start investing. Even if it's just £100 a month, start investing.
Okay, what's the go-to platform to learn?
Yeah. So there's an absolutely brilliant Instagram account called Friends That Invest. It used to be called Girls That Invest. She had to rebrand because in America they had something similar and they tried to sue. But she has a book. So her name is Simran Kaur. She has a book. It's brilliant. It's basically like, back in the day they used to have like something for dummies.
Yeah.
It's that. Yeah. It's like a really easy to read, jargon-free book. If it's still on Amazon, and maybe Girls That Invest, the new prints are going to be Friends That Invest. Everyone should read that book. It's just a jargon-free way to learn how to invest.
I love that. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you on this. Thank you. Learned so much.